All right, Scott, we love Real Water Sports, and one of the things we love about them is they do these big sales periodically, usually centered around a holiday. They've got the 4th of July sale going on right now.
Well, look, I mean, who doesn't like saving money, right? And the 4th of July sale, why not celebrate our anniversary here by purchasing a new surfboard? I kid you not. Well, when you just pulled up, I was Googling up the Lost Mini Driver surfboard. Looks like a cool board. But anyway, Real Water Sports, 4th of July sale. Let's go, folks. Saving some money. That's there's nothing quite as American as saving a few shekels.
I think they should do $250 off each board for the
I'm here for that.
250-year anniversary. We talk about, you talk about Lost right now. We talk about the Channel Islands 80 board drop that they just got. But they also work with small shapers. And I was on their site this morning. I didn't know this. They have Mandala, Manny Caro's Mandala brand. They have Alex Lopez's boards. Jerry Lopez's son, Alex, has been shaping for a long time now. So he's tapped in to like the kind of core, not backyard guys, but like small production, handcrafted guys as well. And girls. So incredible inventory.
Yeah, they've got the Mini Driver in stock as well. I see here. So I'm looking. Oh, yeah.
But that's the thing. Like when you run a big retail shop, 1,500 surfboard inventory, you need to do sales periodically. You got to turn over product. There's always new surfboards coming in. So this is where the consumer benefits. This is why you should go to realwatersports.com now through the 4th of July holiday weekend. And again, if you don't live nearby, that's okay. They've unlocked shipping. They're able to ship surfboards for one low flat fee, which is kind of cool.
That's really good. Okay, Real Water Sports. Check out their 4th of July sale. Oh, by the way, Real Water Sports, we might as well mention they're sponsoring the Best in Show board build-off this year at the Boardroom Show. Real Water Sports stepping up as the presenting sponsor. The category is Super El Nino Big Wave Gun, David. And as you know, feels like we're on the precipice of a super El Nino, and everybody's getting their big wave guns. And they're basically, there's sort of a mindset of crazy big surf. So we're excited about oh, by the way, it's free to enter. Anyone, any surfboard shaper, builder, anyone in the world can enter this event for free, have a board at the show on display. And $5,000 for the first prize. $5,000 we're giving away for first prize.
Amazing. Yeah. So thank you, Real Water Sports. And Surf NVS. If you do buy a new surfboard, you're going to need fins. Go to surfnvs.com. They actually sell their fins also at Real Water Sports, but they are just an incredible manufacturer of fins. I'm going to pull this up real quick. They've got Victor Bernardo on the team. Let's just watch Victor surf. If you watch Victor surf, I don't know what else you need out of a surfer or surfing, and therefore I don't know what you need out of fins other than NVS's fins, because he's riding them.
I swear, I watch these young guys surf. They surf so good, and it just gets me. I think that I can surf like this. I know I cannot, but I get excited about these guys dancing on the waves. Victor Bernardo's got a wonderful style and a really nice guy, too. Super cool cat.
The coolest. He was at the Boardroom Show last year. I'm sure he'll be there again this year. If you had to categorize his surfing into a genre of dance, what kind of dance is he doing?
Is there like a bossa nova? Is that a dance style?
There is, but he's got more pizzazz than bossa nova. I feel like there's a bit of disco in there.
Okay, disco bossa nova, a whole new category.
Disco bossa nova in a beach bar with a what are those? Barefoot beach bar. Name your location with a disco ball lighting up the room.
Yeah, I feel like he might be in Barbados, actually.
Barbados, I love it. So thank you, Surf NVS, not only for the fins, but for investing in guys like Victor, because we love to see it, and partnering with shapers around the globe to get them kind of the best possible fins for their designs. So surfnvs.com.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing right.
Yeah, a guy, David. Yeah, a guy. It's Spit. It's the Spit podcast. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass, and we're talking most things surf, All things surf. Yeah, okay. July 2nd, 2 days before the 4th of July holiday here in the United States. And David, good morning to you.
How are you celebrating?
Well, every year here in Del Mar, they have this thing called the regatta. It's been going on for like 40 years or something like that. There was a group of guys that my contemporaries in high school that started this thing. And it was sort of, it was a little bit like anti-establishment, believe it or not. Like the lifeguards and stuff at the very beginning were against it, you know? And so they'd have to hide. And literally we get these blow up, you know, rafts. And you know, kegs of beer and all sorts of malfeasance was taking place. And you would just storm into the water. And it was just, we would overrun, or I wasn't actually a part of it. I actually worked for the lifeguards at the time, but they would overrun us and just charge out into the water. And they had, at one point, the building of the rafts was a big deal. They have a Commodore each year. There's a lot of alcohol consumption, which I guess is quite American. And anyway, they're still doing that. And to this day, the guys that started this thing, their children, who are now like 25 and 28 or 30, are now in charge of it. But we still go out and do our thing. And I guess I'm going to be on somebody's yacht at the regatta this July 4th.
So the regatta obviously is a reference to a boat race. Are you saying that there's like everybody makes small versions of boats, rafts, and random things?
Well, you just buy a blow up raft. But okay. At one point, guys were building with like it got so dangerous because sometimes, like last year, the waves were huge. Okay. This year, it's not going to be huge. But when there's a south swell and you literally have 300 people on 300 rafts all charging out into the water all at the same time, like racing out there. There's usually the Commodore leads the pack of boats. They leave from one person's house there on the beach in Del Mar, and they walk out, and I think they might sing the national anthem or something, and then it's just a full sprint, and everybody on the beach that doesn't know what's going on is like, "What's up?" And there's just all these rafts out there, and like I said, there's a lot of people are is imbibing, or you know, people are celebrating, you know, on these rafts. Like there's a lot going on, you know. There's a lot of smoking. A lot of drinking, a lot of swimming between rafts, a lot of tomfoolery.
Is it a race?
No, it's not a race.
Oh, okay.
It's just to go out in your boat, and for lack of a better phrase, I'm just going to say it. I think they get drunk. I think people get drunk.
I think you did already say that. You said you're going to be on a yacht, a proper yacht, or just one of these inflatable?
No, these things are called yachts.
Okay.
They're just blow up rafts.
Okay, I didn't know if it had evolved to where there's now a spectator, you know, group of boats outside of the inflatables, and you were going to be on one of those.
No, it's just a bunch of rafts and a bunch of tomfoolery going on.
Very, very cool. Well,
by the way, I will not be partaking in any of the tomfoolery. I'm just going to go out there and see some old friends. I'll probably swim in after 10 minutes. As soon as it gets crazy, I'm out of there.
Awesome. Sounds like fun. Sounds very American, actually. Cool. Well, a couple of updates. Good to see that you are doing the opposite of the tomfoolery and investing in your personal wealth or health and wellness by drinking your AG1.
Yeah, prosperity and abundance through AG1.
DrinkAG1. Yeah, drinkag1.com/surf, of course, for foundational nutrition. Last night, I drank my AGZ, which means I got an incredible night of sleep. Let me tell you what my favorite thing is.
Okay.
I randomly woke up, whatever the time was, 4:30, had to go pee. Came back to bed, look at the clock, I'm like, well, I got about an hour and a half until I need to get up. Without AGZ, I'm pretty restless at that point. I'm like knowing I got to wake up in a period of time. I don't sleep very well. Maybe I don't go back to sleep at all. With AGZ, I'm like, I got 90 minutes left, close my eyes, I'm back out like that.
Love it. The AGZ just kind of in that like really wonderful state of comfort and serenity with your eyes closed, peacefulness.
Melatonin-free sleep aid. Anyways, drinkag1.com/surf. You can get both of them there. Thank you for that. What was the other update I was going to get? Oh, yeah. Adios. You like my shirt. Adios and aloha. Can you see that?
Well, yeah.
Adios and aloha.
Are those new? Is that a new one?
No, this is from our buddies at Tower 20.
Oh, yes.
They made these about a year ago for us. We got merch, listeners, and believe it or not, it's not even available on my website. It's available at Jack's Surfboards websites. There's actually a lot of retailers. I get random photos. A listener sent me a photo. I want to say it was from Daytona Beach, maybe
cool.
maybe from Jacksonville, from a surf shop. They're like, dude, I just walked into the surf shop and look, there's a bunch of your merch from the podcast, Adios and Aloha shirts. So Tower 20 hooks us up with different retailers basically and does the placements for us. But I know for sure you can get these through Jack's Surfboards. So go to jackssurfboards.com. You can just search the word podcast actually, and then all the t-shirts will populate there. But yeah, get your merch.
Get your merch. Go to the proper retailer and Tower 20. There'll be a t-shirt kiosk, if you will.
Yeah.
With all of our stuff.
Yeah, I just actually checked it out. You could also search Tower 20, but search the word podcast. That'll get you there.
Okay.
On jackssurfboards.com.
We've got a lot going on, David. I have a Surfer X where I challenge you to guess who said something or who this person is. We've got a lot of WSL news, sort of logistical news, and some Olympic information, perhaps, to relay.
Okay.
And we have winners from Brazil.
All right, well, let's start with Surfer X. I like a good challenge.
All right, here we go. Surfer X, David, this is the portion of the show where you and the listeners try to guess who I'm talking about. I'm going to read a paragraph here, and I begin. Here we go. Dick Catri and Murphy, the same Murf the Surf, who would soon become notorious for stealing the Star of India gemstone, may have been unconventional role models, but their influence irrevocably changed the young boy's life path. And for Catri, at least, the fortunate change was in many ways reciprocated as Surfer X became one of his all-star team riders for Surfboards Hawaii, Hobie, and other labels that Catri promoted successfully over the years. Excuse me. David, who was Surfer X? Was it A, Jeff Crawford, B, Mike Tabling, C, Gary Proper, or D, Greg Lohr?
Great one, man. Great one. I don't know the answer. I'm just going to take a shot in the dark. Greg Lohr?
No, that's not it, David. It's Gary Proper. Gary Proper is Surfer X, the young surfer who had role models that included Murf the Surf and Dick Catri, two wild and crazy characters within the surf world. And if you don't know anything about Dick Catri or Murf the Surf or Gary Proper, do yourself a favor and throw it into your AI, and you'll get kicked out some really interesting information about all three of those guys. But yeah, Gary Proper, young surfer, rode for Hobie, rode for some other brands, and he is our Surfer X.
Did you come across that quote from anywhere notable, or is it worth?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. The Encyclopedia of Surfing, EOS.surf. If you type in EOS.surf and hit the reply button, you're going to get some incredible information, a plethora of information, insight, videos, photos, history of surfing. Matt Warshaw's Encyclopedia of Surfing. It's a never-ending resource for you and I.
Yeah. The Murf the Surf story has been told in a bunch of different formats, but a couple of years ago, 2020 actually, everything to me is a couple of years ago, and then I look at the dates and I'm like, what? 6 years ago.
Those are gray hairs on your temple, my friend.
They are. 2020, this podcaster name for USA Today, his name's Nathan Scott. He actually spent 9 months with Jack Roland Murphy, who is Murf the Surf, before he died, and interviewed him a bunch and created a podcast series. It's called The Sneak. So if anybody's interested to get kind of the deep dive into that story, certainly touches on surfing, but it's not told from a surfing podcaster and it's not written by a surf publication. It was a really, really, really good podcast series, The Sneak. True crime stories from in and around the world of sports.
Okay, I just pulled it up. I'm very excited about this, and I appreciate you bringing it up because there's some really good stuff here, right?
Yeah, and look, Hall of Fame wave rider, obviously a mastermind jewel thief, potential murderer as well. And by the way, after that, minister.
Yeah,
minister after
yeah.
that.
Yeah, he turned his life over to Jesus Christ.
Or did he?
The teachings of Jesus Christ.
Or did he? Is the question.
The Sneak, I think
podcaster.
That sounds like a teaser from the podcast itself.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So anyways, good one. Gary Proper was actually my instinct. When you said his name, that was my instinct. And then the Greg lore threw me because then I thought maybe you had a surfboard. I don't know. I got thrown.
You know what we did sell one time was in our auction a couple of years ago, we sold Gary Proper's, excuse me. I have a little tease in my throat there. Gary Proper's leather jacket that he got from, not Clint Eastwood, who's my favorite actor, classic.
Oh, Steve McQueen.
Yes, thank you. Steve McQueen. So Steve McQueen gave Gary Proper a leather jacket. And as the story goes, Gary Proper and Hobie Alter and Mickey Munoz were hanging out at Hobie. And Steve McQueen pulled up and ordered a board or he was doing some stuff. And, Steve McQueen was kind of tight with that Hobie crew through, of course, Endless Summer of Bruce Brown and Bruce Brown's film On Any Sunday about motorcycle riding, which Steve McQueen starred in. Anyway, ends up Gary's like, hey, I need a ride. Steve McQueen's like, I'm going to L.A. And Gary's like, hey, I need a ride up to Long Beach. Do you think I can hop in your car? And Steve McQueen's like, yeah, get in. And I don't even think Gary Proper, he probably did know who Steve McQueen was. I think everyone knew who Steve McQueen was. But anyway, Steve McQueen goes, okay, get in, kid. Gary Proper gets in the car, and it ends up they kind of kick it as they're taking the drive and they're talking to each other. Steve McQueen apparently didn't have a father figure. Gary Proper didn't have a father figure, and they bonded over the lack of a father figure. And they got to Long Beach, and Gary Proper opened the door and jumped out, and Steve McQueen grabbed his leather jacket and goes, hey, Gary, here, take this leather jacket. It's for a gift from me to you, and gave Gary Proper his jacket. So Gary Proper had Steve McQueen's leather classic, Air Force bomber jacket. It's a really cool jacket.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Do you have any idea what it sold for?
I want to say we sold it with a surfboard, with a Gary Proper Hobie surfboard for like $5,800. I'm sort of grasping. I'm not exactly sure, but it was right up there.
I remember that lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty cool story.
Very cool.
Gary Proper, by the way, I grabbed that quote from an article that Paul Holmes did in Longboard Magazine, which is featured on EOS.surf. A great read about who Gary Proper is. The whole Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Did you know he's behind that?
I forgot about that.
You know who else is behind that? You know who's friends with Gary Proper? Our friend Pete, Phil Roberts. Not Pete Roberts, Phil Roberts. And Gary Proper were tight. And I believe that Phil Roberts did some of the animation, perhaps, or somehow he was involved with Gary Proper and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't exactly know how. But Phil Roberts is getting inducted into the Surfing Walk of Fame at Huntington Beach this year when they do the U.S. Open there. And I'm pretty excited for Phil, and he deserves it.
Well, if you look at the early, I don't know if he did the animation or maybe just some of the initial mock-ups, but if you look at that original Ninja Turtle artwork, you could definitely see the connection to the Phil Roberts stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot, like everything, all these surf characters, we're all kind of weaved together, 6 degrees of separation in some weird, really weird, fun way.
Yeah. Well, Gary, I don't know you kind of referenced it or not, but he passed away a couple of years. Here we go again, a couple of years ago. It was actually 2019, March 14th, passed away, peacefully in his sleep. So great call out there.
Yeah, that was a good fun one. I ended up reading the whole story. It was really fascinating.
Yeah, very cool. Well, hey, while we're on the subject of surfboards or surfboard manufacturers, I do want to say I teased it with you, my interview with Dan Mann a week or two ago.
Yes, you've gotten great response to that.
Yeah, and then Stab Magazine actually just interviewed him as well. So they have a podcast called Stab Mike, and I think yesterday they published it, and it's Damian Farrenfort's kind of the main host on the show, and then Dane Reynolds is the co-host usually. For this episode, Dane sat out, and Sam McIntosh, the founder, co-founder, and owner of Stab Magazine, sat in. And I got 20 minutes into it. I think they get into, after my 20-minute mark, I haven't gotten to this part yet, but I think they do get into a bit of the Stab controversy surrounding Kelly's selecting of Dan Mann's boards, which Dan and I also discussed, but I have a feeling that Sam will have a different line of questioning. So if anybody wants to go listen to that, feel free. But I will say my first thing I did was scan all the comments, both on YouTube and on Stab Magazine, and 100% glowing reviews of Dan, and what I really feel like is vindication for any of the, I don't know, shrapnel that he may have caught due to Kelly Slater selecting the Firewire surfboard.
Yeah, look, Dan's just such a nice guy. Like he's, saying he's a nice guy actually doesn't even do it service. He's just sincere and authentic, and he's just a good man, Dan Mann. So he's easy to like, and by the way, he's trustworthy. You can just see in his eyes that he's the real deal,
A lot of, one of the comments that I think summed it up best was true gentleman in the surf world. And they were referencing, I think, both Sam and Dan with that comment. Otherwise, they would have said gentleman, but they said gentleman. And maybe Damian Farrenfort, too.
I mean, come on. Let's throw him in there, too. He's a cool cat.
Yeah, cool. But the other guys are gentlemanly, I would say.
Right.
And so I thought that was actually an accurate representation. And by the way, it reminded me of why I love the podcast medium and the podcast platform it's why I've always loved it. It's why I invested into it, is that you get this really pure crystalline representation of the person that you don't get in other platforms. And I know if you're getting a video interview with somebody, of course it's in their own words, but it's almost inevitably edited either for the publication's agenda or just to make it more concise, to make it fit the format, whatever it happens to be. The idea of stripping away a time limit and just letting somebody speak freely in their own voice. And some podcasts are edited, but largely mine are not and others are not. And so you get to really just document surf history direct from the horse's mouth of that person who lived it from their own perspective. Right, wrong, whatever, colored in whatever way, at least it's their own perspective. And so I think that's where you're seeing the vindication for Dan, is that his story had been told and largely not told through Firewire and other kind of entities who have some sort of an agenda, of course. And hearing him come out and just tell his own story is really, really refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And you're absolutely right. And use the word crystalline or crystallizes. I think you're right. Something about the audio version of podcasts or even video, as long as you're not editing it, where you're just like, okay, this is that person. And it's cool. Have you you must have been interviewed. You've done some podcasts. People are reaching out to you to talk to you because you have a really powerful voice in this space. What podcasts have you been on that they're not reaching out to you?
Not really. It's been a very, very long time. Yeah. Just sitting here waiting for the call to come.
Okay. Well,
you know what we were going to do a long time ago, and it never came to fruition, but maybe we could do it now, is I've become friendly with CJ Hobgood, and I was like, hey dude, we should get you on the podcast at some point. And he goes, you know what I would like to do is interview you. He goes, let's do a Surf Splendor episode, but it'll be me interviewing you. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. And then we just never did it.
That would be great. And that sounds like fun.
Yeah,
sure.
I think it would be a kind of cool take because of course I'll get plenty of questions in for him as well. But
Sure.
yeah, I think it'd be a cool way to do it. The thing that I was thinking about with Dan is obviously he's super into prone paddling. He's actually like a champion. I don't even know the way that the circuits or championships work, but he's won a bunch of super impressive awards. That's something I've never heard you talk about. Like you got into SUP, you got into foiling, you got into every aspect of whatever surf craft. I never hear you talk about prone paddling.
Yeah, well, I guess I haven't done a whole bunch of it. I did get a little bit involved in it at some point, but yeah, the city of Del Mar, we had a lifeguard contest every year, and there was a paddle race attached to it, and it was just a sprint. Quite frankly, those things are hard, and I'd rather go the easier, softer way and just have fun. You know, like I'm kind of into fun. I'm not into looking at ways to beat myself up, and those things are radical. Like they're hard. You know what I mean? And I didn't get a whole lot of fulfillment out of it.
Oh, okay. I have flat water near me, like bay, interior waterways. So that's where I have dabbled in it. And that's where I see the value is kind of like if the waves are flat, you still want to get in the sun, you still want to get exercise. That's a great thing. And whenever I've done it, I'm a huge fan of it. And I see the benefit of it. I want to take it more seriously. Or Dan inspired me to take it more seriously, I guess.
Well, the fun part for me has always been downwind, right? Doing a downwind run. Because at least that way you're catching waves, you're actually riding swells. It's a total blast if you've got the right conditions. And I did quite a bit of that on the stand-up paddle. But grinding into a south wind going to Catalina Island it is brutal, man.
Yeah. And the flat water stuff is boring. So the downwind run actually makes it more exciting, engaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Well, anyways, the main surf story popping up in the last few days is that the WSL just announced they're adding a new stop on the championship tour for 2026. They're adding a stop this year within, I think, the next 4 months, actually 4 or 5 months. That stop is Cloud 9 in the Philippines.
Yeah, that's right. The 11th stop of a 13-leg CT season, October 31st to November 10th, David. And Portugal has now been pushed forward a week. It'll run October 16th through October 25th. And the Surf Abu Dhabi Pro has been postponed to November 25th to the 29th. And a lot of this is due to the unstable Middle East situation with the United States going to war with Iran. So, a big shakeup and something that kind of threw me, and I think threw a lot of people that weren't in the know. It was sort of a surprise, right?
Totally. And specifically, they're worried the Abu Dhabi event's going to get canceled. And so the WSL needed to have a plan B in place. And I think they said, we need to secure these permits, potentially get an event in place, but we don't know if we're going to need to cancel the Abu Dhabi event. So what they're presenting here is an option to do both. Right now, Abu Dhabi's still on the record, it's still planned to happen. But if they remove it, at least they have a replacement queued up that people can start to map for, rather than laying it on them at the last second.
Should all 13 events run, the world title and the final season rankings will be determined by the surfers' best 10 of the 13 results. And if they, in fact, cancel Abu Dhabi and it's only 12 events, the world title and rankings will count on the surfers' best 9 of 12 results. And, man, I was just thinking it would obviously be horrible if there was missiles being fired into a surf contest, but It would be good for it would be good for notoriety. It would be, like it'd be CNN front page, Fox News.
That's one take.
No, no news is bad news.
No, but missiles have landed in the lineup in the surf at Tel Aviv, and that didn't really make too big of a splash, no pun intended, in terms of the news headlines. I'd be thrilled if they just cancel the whole event. I mean, look, there is a certain amount of risk involved in traveling, and I guess also Qantas is rerouting flights. They're going over the North Pole apparently to avoid some of this conflict. So there's a lot of logistical challenges. Obviously, there's human rights concerns, in the Middle East that people.
That's not one of their concerns.
Maybe not. That's not one of whose concerns?
The WSLs.
I think it would be. I think it has been in the past.
Well, then why are they doing it?
Because they've measured the concerns and they're not and the benefits outweigh the concerns, and they have they had a vested interest in the wave pool business until now.
Right. But, okay. Now we're getting to the bottom of it.
Yeah, you weigh the concerns, and there's a payout that's worth what more than the risks is kind of the calculus. Right. But it has come up in conversation of Tyler Wright, who's been so outspoken about equality and LGBTQ rights, all that kind of thing. Is she going to go compete in Abu Dhabi? Basically, was the question.
Right.
But my point is, it's the wave pool event. Cancel it. Like, already cancel it because it's the wave pool event. But then now with all of these added complications and risks, cut it. And if you've already got the other spot locked up, Cloud9, which they do now, get rid of it. We don't need a 13th event, basically.
Well, here's a thought. I'm excited for the Cloud9 event, right?
Of course. Yeah. We should have stated that. This is a phenomenal event. This is a phenomenal venue to run an event at.
But the waves are the stars, as we know. And Cloud9 is fickle. I mean, it could be flat.
Yeah.
For 3 weeks.
And
the thing about Abu Dhabi is, you can get an event done and the waves are never going to be flat.
Well, that's the thing. Even with like Brazil, you're going to get surf. It'll be contestable. It won't be, it might not be great. And even the good days aren't great, but at least it's contestable. This is a scenario where it could be proper flat where there's not a wave to surf.
Yeah, that's definitely a situation that needs to be known, right?
But that being said, they've run a QS event there, or I don't even know if sometimes it's a QS event, but I don't know that it always is, but they've been running it for 24 years.
Yeah.
And they have done it consistently for 24 years. I don't know if any of those events didn't get completed because of the flat fickleness, but they have gotten phenomenal surf in that event historically. So
for sure,
it's able to be done.
Yeah. And hopefully this is the case, right? That we have a really great swell, because what a phenomenal wave. And that looks like the kind of wave that you and I would enjoy riding. Like it's like 4 to 6 feet. It's kind of a little chip in, like it's not super critical. And then it opens up and hits the ledge and runs. And then there's a little area where I would kick out. You might do an aerial. Apparently the other surfers are going to be doing aerials.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So you reference postseason versus regular season, but let's just kind of tease that apart because it's going to be new this season. The way that they had it mapped out before was the field gets the men's side of the field after Paniche. Was it Cloudbreak was the last event of the regular season previously, would be reduced to 24 on the men's side and 16 on the women's side, eliminating 12 of the men and 8 from the women's draw. That's now being adjusted. So Portugal is being moved from postseason to preseason. Then they make that cut to the reduced field. And now the postseason is 3 events, presuming they run Abu Dhabi. So it would be Philippines, Abu Dhabi, then Pipe, of course, as the final event. But everybody comes back for the final event at Pipe, just to complicate things. So this Cloud9 event is postseason, is my point. So only 24 men and 16 women surfing in the Philippines.
Well, that should help a little bit regarding concern about swell. So that's good.
Right. So that brings me to my point, which is, what do I like about this? What I love about this is flexibility. The WSL finally pulling an audible and showing a willingness and ability to be nimble, which is necessary if you want to run the best surfers and the best waves in the world. So we've been asking for this. We've been saying smaller tour, better waves, run in one swell window. This is them saying, we can do it. We're doing it now. We're doing it with 4 months notice, actually. This is kind of a step in the right direction for, I think, what will ultimately become the model that we've been asking for so long.
Yeah, I think you're right. In a weird way, it's like they're almost dipping their toe in the water. If they pull this off, they're going to look at themselves and go, look, the entire tour maybe needs to be this way.
Totally.
Can we, you know what I mean? So we'll see, but certainly little baby steps here, and that's a good thing.
I could see, I haven't read any of the online chatter about whether people like or dislike this event. I could see there being consternation about just like, oh, you're mixing things up mid-year. What's going on? But to me, I'm like, no, this is all good. This is all the way that it should be all along. We never should have had a tour set in schedule from a year in advance. That's kind of insane with the surf world and the way that swells work. So I like the idea of a mobile tour that is ready to activate on a swell's notice, basically. And this is a great option for that.
Now, I don't know anything other than what I've seen online about the Philippines and the Cloud9 area. But I'm assuming that there's probably some backup contingency locations if it's unrideable for whatever reason at Cloud9. Because there's surf schools and stuff there. There must be some,
Yeah.
like, I know it would be crappy. I know it wouldn't be the ideal situation, but you've got these athletes there. You're going to need to run an event.
This is what you're saying is the equivalent of Bell's is the main venue, but if it gets small, we can go over to Winky and run heats.
Yeah, ideally.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that, or hopefully I could see that being a potential, and hopefully they have something like that in play.
Yeah, what else do you got, David?
Well, for anybody interested, I've got little Cloud9 history because I think it is such a fascinating surf spot. And the lore and the story.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
How did Cloud9 get its name?
Let me get to that.
Okay.
That's included in my The Legend of Cloud9, as written by Paul Evans. This ran in Wavelength magazine a couple of years ago, 2020.
Okay. Oh yeah, right.
Cloud9 is firmly among the A-list of premium non-Indonesian Southeast Asian surf spots. In fact, the hollow right-hand reef break could hold its own with many of the finest of the Indonesian, of what Indonesia has to offer. The fabled break on Siargao, which, is that the island name? Oh yeah, the island's east coast is not only home to world-class waves, but also surf legend of the highest order. In fact, when calibrating for a sport that is obsessed with its own mythology more than most, the tale of intrigue, adventure, crime, mystique, and ultimately tragedy might be one of surfing's very finest of all. The story centers around Mike Boyum, who set up the original G-Land camp, the world's first surf camp, in the early 1970s after his brother had spotted the wave from an airplane window. The camp, whose guests included the likes of Jerry Lopez, charged up to $100 a night for exclusivity, reportedly pulling in Boyum up to $250,000 per season from the surf camp business. But with rumors that G-Land Surf Camp's income was supplemented with narcotics trafficking, it wasn't long before Boyum found himself within the sights of the Indonesian authorities. Feeling the boot coming down, Boyum wasted little time in burning the treehouse camp that he had built and fleeing, depressed, delusioned, and somehow apparently broke. A subsequent smuggling misadventure in French Caledonia eventually saw Boyum do 4 years in jail, as told in the film Sea of Darkness. Which, by the way, if anybody needs that story, that's a side note. We can get to that later. Following his release, Boyum is said to have been laying low in Bali, thinking of his next move when he met two surfers, Steve Jones and Tony Arosa, who had been the first surf explorers to Siargao in the early 80s. Some reports state that Jones and Arosa called the reef at Tuanasan Point, now known as Cloud 9, they called it Jacking Horse, although some claims are disputed elsewhere. Whatever they did or didn't call it, they imparted enough information to inspire Boyum. In December of 1988, an American traveler named Max Walker arrived at the Siargao town of General Luna carrying a battered surfboard, asking the local mayor permission to camp at the deserted Tuasan Point, some 3 kilometers away. According to excerpts from his diaries, later published in the Surfer's Journal, after spending a few months meditating and following a macrobiotic diet, Walker embarked on a 40-day cleansing fast from his hut on the beach overlooking the wave. Having made several friends in the village, Walker had a local come check on him and give him lemon juice and water every few days if needed. Apparently not satisfied with the hardship of the fast itself, Walker is reported to have taken to laying out in the brutal midday Philippine sun each day to induce delirious heat and hunger fantasies about food, even writing his favorite recipes from his childhood in his journal.
Oh my God.
There was a major storm, which meant that Walker was actually left alone without visits from those locals for a few days. And when a visit was finally possible, June 14th, 1989, he was found dead after 43 days of fasting. Going through his personal effects, the locals' suspicions that Max Walker was not the traveler's real name were confirmed. Max Walker was, in fact, Mike Boyum. 4 years later, American photographer John Callahan did a Surfer magazine trip to the Philippines with Rusty team writers Taylor Knox and Evan Slater. The 1992 publication of the score revealing the wave to the world via a cover story feature, creating a whole new tropical destination. The accompanying story revealed that the name Cloud9 came about after nothing more than the name of the Philippine chocolate bar that the crew used as part of their daily sugar charge. Scott Bass.
Right.
Is that the detail you knew?
That is.
Okay.
On top of that, apparently the chocolate bar has an ability to not melt.
Correct.
So it's this meltless chocolate bar.
Quote, "We just named the wave after the local no-melt chocolate," end quote, said Callahan of his historic trip. Quote, going into town after lunch for a warm Coke and a Cloud9 was the highlight of our day, end quote. While subsequent rumors flew about that Boyum had in fact faked his own death, or that the Maui Mafia, from whom he reportedly stolen $1 million, had caught up with him, locals can still point to the spot where Boyum's unmarked grave lies, just a few hundred yards from what is now a bustling international surf destination.
What is the Maui Mafia? Does that even exist? What?
Just add it to the lore. It doesn't matter if it exists or not.
Well, I just looked it up, so let's find out what's going on here.
Well, I will also say while you're doing that, I'm pulling up some imagery from that 1992 trip that ended up on the cover of Surfer magazine. Do you remember this, Scott? Take a look.
Oh, yeah. No, I absolutely remember this.
This is Taylor Knox's first wave at Cloud9, and everybody, of course, jumped in the water after they saw it. We'll go down to some more images from John Callahan. And by the way, I found John Callahan wrote this about this trip, published these photos on medium.com. So I will link to the Medium article from surfsplendorpodcast.com if anybody wants to check that out. But I mean, just vintage, classic Taylor Knox. This is the trip that inspired, schoolbook drawings, tons of other trips, obviously the International Surf Contest. Here's Evan Slater. Pretty awesome stuff.
Man, we were all skinny back then, like everyone's put on a few elbows.
Tell me about it, Scott.
The Maui Mafia, the company, also called the Hawaiian Syndicate, is the name given to an organized crime syndicate based in Hawaii that controlled criminal activities in the state of Hawaii from the late 60s to the mid 90s. Controlled primarily by local Asian criminal organizations, mainly the Chinese triads, the Japanese Yakuza, and so on and so forth. And they recruited Hawaiians to do some of their work there in Hawaii.
So, I've always thought about this. If I were to become a criminal,
Yeah.
particularly drug kingpin, maybe bank robber,
Yeah.
I like that there's an end date on their reign, because what always gets them is trying to like dominate forever. But you hear these stories of he robbed 8 banks and he had $14.5 million. But you know what? He wanted that one final score. And then they get busted on the final score. Drug lords get to the point of incredible riches, but they just need to keep going for some reason. No, set an end date. I'm going to do it for 3 years. I'm going to get wealthy beyond my, imagination, and then check out of the game, disappear, go to Cloud 9.
I like it. I'm going to,
Not that I've ever thought about this before.
well, I'm going to consider my own potential crime syndicate and my career there.
This
Anyway,
this is off the cuff. I've never once contemplated this.
Right. Not until just now. There's a pretty good Wikipedia here on the company or the Hawaiian crime syndicate. And a little interesting read there. Eventually it does involve Native Hawaiians taking control.
Sweet. Well, shout out. Good job, WSL, for being nimble. And then obviously congratulations to that Rusty team rider trip back in 1992. And John Callahan for, his name is cemented in the record books.
Yeah, he's quite an adventurous photographer. He liked to go places other people hadn't been, that's for sure.
Well, I'll give you, his Medium article is far too long for me to read, but I'll just give you a snippet, and I encourage you, just Google it or a link from Surf Splendor podcast. But he says, I made the trip to the Philippines with Taylor Knox and Evan Slater in the typhoon season of 1992, early September. We didn't know much about where we were going or what we might find, but we knew the east coast of the Philippines got seasonal swell from western Pacific typhoons. So we decided to go to this island called Sigarao to have a look. After first arriving in the Philippines in Cebu City, and then, I don't know what the name of this city is, we realized we had to go to Sigarao Island. We asked at the local hotel that we were staying at, and they said that we could wait until the public boat in the afternoon, or we could go to the harbor and charter a boat ourselves. We got in a taxi and went to the harbor. In an hour or so, we had booked and paid a cash deposit on a boat to Sigarao and returned to the hotel to get our stuff to check out. That's the lay of the land. Dive in deeper if you want. It's really, really good.
That's great. That's wonderful. What an adventure for those guys. And that is so cool. And, I got to say, look, with this Super El Nino starting to ramp up, the Western Pacific could have a lot of storm activity this season. So it could really be all-time epic, like I think, right, that we're going to be fueling the atmosphere with this warm water as it moves towards the Western Pacific. And let's fuel the atmosphere. Let's get some low pressure spinning. Let's get some typhoons going. It's on for October at Cloud 9.
That could be insane. For anybody who didn't see the waves that I just showed on YouTube and hasn't seen the wave, it's a hollow right point or right reef break, basically, like as kind of wide as it is tall. 6 feet is ideal. 6 feet tall, 6 feet wide, and then it comes out into this crazy cupping air section, like a steep takeoff, but it's shallow reef, so there's a little bit of, consequence there. But it's not something, I'm sure it stops working at a certain height, probably like 8 feet, but it's ideally head high.
In a weird way, it's kind of like if you were to make a wave pool, this would be the type of wave that you would want to create. Like it's a really hollow killer barrel, but a little bit of a chip in, like it's not super critical at the drop, but you then kind of backdoor section, set your rail, spin out of this deep barrel, and there's a huge air section. It's kind of like the perfect wave pool wave.
Seems like 10's on offer all day long for the top, for the CT level surfers. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the scoring there, if they got like a proper swell.
I mean, there is video out there of Skip McCullough's win. It was firing. Like you watch those waves. I think you and I spoke about it years ago when he won it, because it caught our eye. We're like, hey, we normally wouldn't talk about a QS or a Challenger Series, but did you see the waves at Cloud 9? And, I know you and I spoke of it, years ago, and I'm sure that footage is out there on YouTube somewhere. It's pretty insane.
I've got it. I'm going to try to download it real quick and upload it to our platform.
By the way, you're frozen. You've been frozen for a while.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Hey, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk some more.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Welcome back. Am I still frozen?
Yes.
Bummer. I think we just ride it out.
Okay.
I pulled up that Skip McCullough footage. You want to guess when in on my theme of everything was only a few years ago? Do you want to guess when this was?
I'm going to say it was I'm going to say it's 2017.
Very close. 2018. Can you see the footage even though I'm frozen?
Yeah, I can see the footage. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is not Skip. Skip's waves come in a minute or two, but like you said, flawless. I mean, and I said 10-point rides on tap. Like, you can get 4 10s of this heat.
This might be the local guy that has won like back-to-back-to-back events there. There's a local guy that absolutely owns the place.
Yeah.
But yeah, look how bitchin' that place is, man. I want to ride a wave like that.
I mean, there's got to be others. If not, this is
that's
Skip.
That's Skip right there.
Yeah.
That was sick.
Yeah. Crazy wave.
I think he's riding Xanadu's right there.
I mean, he rode Xanadu's forever. I don't know if he still is. But there you go. That's what it could look like. And to be honest, even though they've done events here, I've never seen like the top level surfing out there. So I think this is a super exciting event to have on tour.
That's a pretty big wave, pretty big set. See that out the back there where it kind of capped?
Yeah.
Like a little bit like HT's.
Exactly. Yeah. So
that's cool.
Excited to see it.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be pumping. I think it might be. I think this is a good time, good year for it, I guess I should say.
Well, while we're on the topic of the WSL CT events, Brazil wrapped up since we last spoke. Iago beat Leonardo Fioravanti in the final, and Sawyer Lindblad beat Tia Zabrowski in the final.
And Leo Fioravanti is in the yellow jersey in first place. That's something that didn't really see that coming, to be honest with you.
Huge updates in the rankings, to be honest. Yeah, I didn't see Leo in first. It's the first time probably there's ever been an Italian in first place. And then Brazil is still dominant, but in the top 10, George Patar, which I also didn't see coming, Kanoa snuck in there, and Liam O'Brien sneaks into the 10th position.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, right? George Patar, I think he's riding Channel Islands.
Yep, that's right.
Liam, I don't know what he's riding, JS's maybe?
DHDs.
DHDs. And it feels like Matt Biolis and the Lost surfboards are kind of just dominating the shaper rankings, if you will.
Yeah, I think they are. Iago's riding them on the men's side. And then the women's, I think.
Carissa.
Yeah, Carissa. Isn't Gabrielle O'Brien on them as well?
Maybe. I'm not sure, but Carissa's in second place. I mean, Carissa's probably your world champion. What do you think? That's not saying too much. That's too crazy.
Well, Carissa's won 2 events back-to-back, but she's still in second place. Gabby has that first position, but there isn't a huge point spread between them. So, yeah, no. Carissa, especially going into these bigger waves, the Chopu, the Cloudbreak, where experience matters, and I think Carissa has more experience out there. But Sawyer Lindblad just won an event, and she's on the come-up. She, as I mentioned last week, has been, I think, in a year-long relationship or so with Ethan Ewing, and they've traveled a lot in the off-season. They've worked together a lot, training together, and I think that's why we're seeing this run from her.
Well, look, as a USA guy, she's our only hope. You know what I mean? Sawyer Lindblad, because Carissa's waving the Hawaiian flag. we don't have anybody on the men's side that's doing anything worth noting. And
Sawyer's not our only hope. We got Caitlin Simmers. Who else on the women's side? Lakey Peterson, Caroline Marks, all in the top 10.
okay, well, the women are carrying the flag for the USA during our 250th anniversary here.
Yeah. But I like to see Sawyer. Like, look, I always love a mix up. It gets
too.
boring when it's the same top 5, top 10 that you point to all the time. So I love seeing Sawyer make this run, and she deserves it. She's surfing insane.
By the way, that statement you made is really the WSL's argument for why there should be a larger tour, a larger field of surfers on tour, is that they'll argue that, that you get these, injections of youth and energy and excitement that you wouldn't get if you just had the same 12 people. But it's kind of interesting. I think you can still get these Sawyer Lindblads coming to the top when you have 24 guys and 24 women.
That argument is wrong because what you need is a robust feeder system for those people to jump through into, and then they can inject, but they have to prove themselves on the feeder system. I don't need a bloated tour for them to, try to punch up into. The feeder system does it, and then the premium tour is for the fans.
And frankly, like when I think of, I watch a lot of tennis. I mean, we want to see Rafa against Djokovic in the final. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And if there's a semifinal where there's a young upstart and they upset Djokovic and it's Rafa and the young upstart, that's killer too.
Yep. Yep. By the way, Tahiti starts April 8th through the 18th. So we have about a month off, a little bit more than a month off in between events here.
Yeah.
So we can do kind of a reset and a chill. I have a listener call that I loaded last week. I cannot remember if I played it or not. I don't think that I did.
Okay.
But let me ask you if you remember me playing it. It was in reference to our conversation about American surfers not having grit on tour.
Oh, I think, did this come from listener Mike?
No, I don't think so. Or maybe it did. It was about emotional grit.
I think we did talk about this. I think
we did play it. Okay. It was about Mick Fanning having lost a brother, and him, even though he was raised with privilege and access, he had an emotional grit.
Is this from Mike, listener Mike?
I don't think it was. I think Mike, actually it was. Let me just play it real quick, see.
Yeah.
Sorry. I remember, Mike.
Because I feel like we talked about
this. This is Ross calling.
So no, this is not Mike. We did talk about Mike's either email or call.
Yeah. Well, let's listen to Ross. I feel like we may have touched on this, but let's just give it a listen here.
That's why I was confused, because Mike was talking about the women's side, but let's listen to this one real quick.
For episode spit June 10th, just for Scott here, you guys were talking about grit. Always great conversation on the show, grit to win the world tour. I think we're all thinking about that, socioeconomic. Always a great conversation. I wanted to add something. I do think when we talk about Mick Fanning's grit in particular, it is important to note, I think I've read his biography. My details are a little hazy, but I believe his brother died in a very horrific car accident. So grit can come from a lot of other places too, not just socioeconomic or privilege. So emotional grit. Very interesting topic. And I just wanted to put a finer point on Mick's history because, if anyone wants to look back, watch Missing, all of that stuff, Mick's probably one of my favorite surfers because of his values and his history. So if anyone is looking for something interesting to look into, that would be Mick's biography. All right, thanks again, dudes.
Yeah, so this was the reference, or this was in reference to Mike May's call that we were just talking about.
Well, I think it's a wonderful call, Ross. Thank you. And one of the things that I really like about it is that Ross is looking to, some of the surf stars, and he's looking beyond that what they do on the wave, and he's looking through their character, right? And Ross is a fan of Mick Fanning's character, and who isn't? He brings up a great example of a pro surfer who has been through some pretty crazy stuff. And I do know that his brother died, and I do know that it was, I don't know actually all the ins and outs of it, but it was horrific, obviously. And Mick's brother was somebody that was really important, of course, to Mick. And so, yeah, there was a lot of emotional, I don't want to say baggage, but emotional trauma that he had to deal with. And that certainly provides the basis for either, fight or flight. You either grow from this or you get dragged by it. And Mick obviously grew from it. And I do believe that emotional grit, and a lot of these guys have that attached to them. And I guess a lot of it is when you're socioeconomically, I guess what I'll say a lesser strata or a lower class, there's sort of grit built into that, sort of baked into that. Yeah. So I think if you're already wealthy and then you have some massive trauma, it's probably I'm going to suggest it might be a little bit more difficult to deal with that, face it, because you have the resources to just escape from it.
Right. Well, I think with the common denominator with all of those inciting incidents is that they're outside of your control. So the grit is coming from something that you cannot manufacture no matter what. Mick Fanning did not choose to lose his brother. And he was able to use building blocks to kind of come out from it in a position of power to be able to utilize it. But same goes if you were born into a position of poverty. You didn't choose into that, But for the record, I don't know when that book was published. Mick Fanning, the book was referencing he lost his brother Sean in a car crash in 1998, but tragically, Mick Fanning's actually lost all three of his brothers. His brother Peter has died in his sleep from heart complications in 2015, and then his brother Edward passed very suddenly in March of 2024 from cardiac complications while he was in Madagascar. He had been living there, living and working there. I'm not sure what he was doing there actually, but he had been working there since COVID. So Mick Fanning has lost all three of his brothers. His grit that is documented in the book that the caller is referencing was probably the first brother, because that's when he went on to win his world titles. After that, the other two deaths have come after the world titles, but tragic situation for the Fanning family, no doubt.
Yeah, that is horrific. That's tough, man. Well, There's the grit that Ross was talking about. Great call, by the way, Ross. Thanks for reaching out and highlighting that, because I think that's important.
On the subject of losing family members or people, were you familiar with or did you know the La Jolla surfer who passed away at Chopu on April 19th?
No.
Patrick
did
Phillips?
not. Yeah, I know the name. I've seen it recently in the news. I did not know him and wasn't familiar with him at all.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't cover it when it happened, but 56-year-old surfer from La Jolla who just everybody, the outpouring, of course, of support, but everybody said phenomenal things about him, just like super competent surfer. This proves it could happen to anybody because his level of competence was so high, but also like dedicated family man who focused on career in order to raise a family in La Jolla for so long. And at the age of kind of mid 50s, was able to finally, the kids go out of the house. He's able to take his foot off the gas from like being a provider. And he's always been a hardcore surfer locally, but now do some of these exotic trips that you look forward to doing, in retirement, and still surfing at a super high level. But he was at Chopu and fell off his board, hit his head on the reef, and then broke 2 vertebrae in his neck. They were able to rescue him from the water, but he was ultimately succumbed to his injuries at the French Polynesia Hospital Center, survived by the wife and 2 children. So super tragic situation, but reminder, of the dangers.
Yeah.
Patrick Phillips.
I'm so sorry for his family. That's horrible. And our thoughts are with his family for sure.
Lived an incredible life though, doing what he loved.
Yeah, it's hard to square everything up, regardless, he's missed.
And that's a reminder too. Paul Strauch's paddle out for anybody interested in the Southern California area, July 22nd from 3 to 6 p.m. at Doheny. Another will be probably scheduled on Oahu as well. But if you're around on Wednesday, July 22nd, and you want to participate, Paul Strauch paddle out, Doheny.
Real quick before we go, I'll tell you that the Olympic qualifying for surfing has changed a little bit. I guess the ISA caved a little bit, I guess you could say. They had announced a system earlier, and it one of the sticking points was that the WCT World Surf League Championship Tour qualification spots from 10 men to 10 women was going to be removed to make it just 5 men and 5 women. And many of the sport's biggest names were pissed off about it. And I'll quote Yago Dora here, complete disrespect on the way you guys conducted this. Absolutely sad for our sport and future generations of surfers, wrote Yago Dora. But now we have updated qualification systems, which were approved by the International Olympic Committee Executive Board. And the number of championship tour qualifiers has increased to 8 men and 8 women, a slight increase from the previously proposed 5 per gender. So things have changed a little bit for the better if you're a WCT, WSL surfer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good to know. Also, a quick reminder before we go, surfrider.org. Do you know what the dirtiest beach day of the year is, Scott?
July 5th.
Absolutely, which is an abomination. Like, it makes sense. It's the busiest beach day on July 4th, and so then, of course, the dirtiest would be the day after the busiest. But it's just an abomination to think that people just leave their trash on the beach. And by the way, the Surfrider documents, they catalog at these beach cleanups. They actually separate items and catalog what's what. They weigh it all so they know how much trash was removed. And invariably, the number 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 items that are collected always.
Rafts.
No.
blow up rafts. Torn blow up rafts from drunken fools.
In Del Mar with a bullet. I'm sure that is what it is. But items 1 through 5 are always related to food. It's like just food wrappers, plastic cups, cigarette butts also. But it's like people just come to the beach, they eat and drink, and then they leave their trash. It's insane to me. Like, it is insane. If you're that human, what is wrong with you? How do you think that's okay and acceptable? So
I don't know. That's sad.
It's really insane. Anyways, if you want to get involved in a beach cleanup, you still have time. That's July 5th. And if not, at least get involved with any of the other initiatives, which you can find on surfrider.org. I believe it's actually volunteer.surfrider.org, but you can go to surfrider.org and navigate there too. So get involved.
Yeah, let's clean up this July 5th for sure. Be involved with the Surfrider. Good stuff, David.
Yeah, in 2024, I believe it was, over the course of the year of 2024, they collected 365,000 pounds of trash throughout the course of the year, 40,000 volunteers, and 1,200 cleanups around the U.S. So incredible work.
Holy mackerel. That's a lot of trash.
It's a lot of trash. I've got a must-see moment that I can provide to you. And look, you can go ahead and, this is your official pat on the back, because years and years ago, you're like, Kai Lenny's the best surfer in the world. I'm like, no, he's not. Like, yeah, he surfs big waves, but can he ride a shortboard? And then, of course, immediately thereafter, Kai Lenny posts clips on a shortboard doing airs. Then you're like, see, he's the best surfer in the world. And I'm like, yeah, but can he get barreled at backdoor? Then next season, he's out at backdoor getting barreled. I'm like, yeah, but can he? And then I ran out of things. And then this week, he posts this video of him going switch stance. Did you see this?
I did. And did you see the workout regime too?
I didn't see the workout regime.
Oh, my God.
But he posted.
That's sick. That's a sick turn. Best surfer in the world. Look at him going backside.
So him, not only backside, switch backside.
Yeah,
So
thank
he
you.
posts this clip ripping both regular footed and goofy footed, natural footed and goofy footed. And he says in the caption, I'm continuing my campaign to switch stance on each wave. So he's surfing a right hand point break. He'll get one wave regular foot, and then the next wave he'll go goofy foot. And by the way, he's ripping almost as hard on his non-dominant stance.
These clips, and there's a lot of clips coming out of Indo right now, and I'm assuming this is a 3-fin surfboard. Do you think it is?
Yeah, I think so.
It just makes me want to get a 3-fin surfboard. That's why, you know what I mean? Like, that looks
As
like,
if you don't have one.
well, like a freshie is what I mean.
As if you don't have a fresh one either.
I don't think I have a 3-fin surfboard, to be honest. Oh, I do actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, anyways, Kai Lenny, I mean,
He's the best.
give it up. I at first I saw this and I'm like, okay, he is mirroring the clip, but I'm like, he's not, because look at the background, and then you can see his leash is still on the same foot. So he is legitimately switching stance on each wave, alternating waves.
He's an incredible athlete.
I didn't say it, but Musty Moment, of course, is presented by Treeswax. He's probably using I wouldn't be surprised if he had Treeswax on right now because of how hard he's ripping. It's high performance wax made from rocks and trees. Treeswax.com, promo code SPIT saves you 20%, and it's online money back guarantee.
Heck yeah. Well, look, David, we've said a lot. A lot's been discussed back and forth. And until next time, adios and aloha.